Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I'm going to give you my review of Elio. Elio is the latest Pixar film, and it was one of my most anticipated movies of this year. Pixar always delivers. I loved the look of the trailers, and I am a huge fan of space stuff, so I was super excited for this film. Unfortunately, it didn't really do that well at the box office. And while I don't think that Elio is going to be a new Pixar classic, I do think it's definitely worth a watch. But before we go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. I want to take a moment and thank everybody. We finally hit 300 subscribers. That is incredible. It just means a lot to me. Like, you don't know how much it means to me that you'll subscribe and you're here and you want to listen and engage and talk about movies with me. Like, that's just mind-blowing. So thank you for 300 subscribers. Thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing. But if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you're not new here, please share this video with any friends or family. It could really help the channel grow, and it would absolutely make my day. So before I get into the review real quick, one last thing is I will be doing my Superman review. I did not have time this past weekend. I was helping a friend with a 48-hour film festival film, and that was a lot of fun. But you can expect my Superman review, which was my most anticipated movie of this year. You can expect that for next week's video. Now, jumping into Elio. Elio is a film about a boy named Elio, who is a space fanatic with an active imagination, and he finds himself on a cosmic adventure where he has to form new bonds with aliens, navigate an intergalactic crisis, and discover who he is truly meant to be. Like I mentioned before, I absolutely love space stuff. I mean, Star Wars is my favorite film of all time. I always loved learning about space growing up in school, so this film was right up my alley. I ended up liking Elio, but I didn't love it. I didn't like it as much as I was hoping to, and I didn't think it was quite as good as I was hoping that it would be. But there's really not a lot of bad here. There's just some things that aren't quite as solid as the rest of the film. And I think most of that not so great stuff comes from the script. First thing I want to say is overall, I don't know how engaging the story really is. I feel like there's not really anything to really hook you in the narrative. I think overall the story flowed pretty well. It didn't ever drag at any point, but it just kind of felt like the story just kind of happened, if that makes sense. Even though I wouldn't say that I feel like the pacing was rushed, I feel like there were a lot of character relationships that weren't developed like I wish they would have. I wish we had more time to really develop some of these relationships. Like between two characters, they develop an important relationship in the film with just kind of like one quick montage. And I just wish we had more, because I did enjoy the world that it set up. I enjoyed the characters we were introduced to. So I wish we really got to see the characters develop both with themselves and with their relationships a little bit more. And the story as a whole has story beats that you would probably recognize from other films if you are an avid film watcher. I would say by the end of the first act, I could guess how the rest of the beats of the film were going to go, and I was right with every guess that I had. One thing I was actually really disappointed in is that they just flat out tell you the moral of the story. You know me, I talk about show, don't tell. Well, they did not do that here. They absolutely basically just sat you down and told you, hey, pay attention. This is the moral of the story. One of the characters just outright says it. And I just thought, like, come on, Pixar, you're better than that. I think they did enough world building and they did enough with the characters to where, like, you really understood what the moral of the story was supposed to be. You understand the themes in this story. You don't need characters telling the audience and telling the other characters what this story is supposed to be about. So I wish they were a lot more subtle with that than they were. One thing that I definitely appreciated, though, is that everything that was introduced in the story tied back in one way or another. Everything that was introduced earlier was just perfectly tied in later. So many things could have just been brought in as like a character thing, a little character quirk, or just something to kind of flesh out the world or whatever. But everything that they introduced came back in one way or another by the end of the film. And everything that they introduced had meaning. And I love that. That's just the signs of a really tight screenplay. Like toward the end of the film, I was able to kind of like connect the dots with everything that they were wrapping up perfectly, and I loved it. Another thing that I do appreciate is that our characters here are not dumb. There's one point in this film where Elio's aunt figures something out, and a character where they might not have been as well written just would have probably been fooled the whole time. And speaking of Elio, I think Elio is a very strong character. He's confident in himself, sometimes to a fault, but we really get to sit with him and his emotions, and he's really trying to find his place in the world after the death of his parents. I really enjoyed Elio as a character, and I would love to see more from him. And as characters go, we get the most from him. I'm not mistaken, I think the whole film is from his point of view. We spend just about every second of this film with him from his perspective. So it definitely was important for them to nail his character, and they absolutely did. One of the main positives I have about this is just an absolutely gorgeous film. Like, I want some 4K screenshots so I could put it as like a computer background or phone wallpaper. The animators and designers on this film were absolutely cooking. The whole film just looked so fantastic, so beautiful. There was a ton of tiny little details in characters and environments. I noticed things like there were some tiny little hairs that, nobody would miss, but the detail is just so impressive. There's even stuff like stitches on clothing that you can notice. Like, that's just so incredibly impressive with their attention to detail, and that just helps add to the film. It just looked great, and all of the space stuff was truly awe-inspiring. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then another thing that really stood out to me, there's a few points in the film where we're around water, and all of the water simulations looked basically perfect. That's just something that maybe some people might not would think of, but when I see water in, especially an animated film like this, and it looks as good as it did, I was just really impressed. And as for the character design, they did a great job with that here. They had a wide variety of different aliens, and they did such a great job of making them all look unique and distinct. There's just a huge variety of the aliens that they had to design, and I don't really think I saw any that looked too similar to one another. The whole voice cast does a great job as well. The younger and more unknown actors for the characters like Elio or Glorden both did fantastic, and they had great chemistry with each other. Zoe Saldana plays Elio's aunt. She does a really good job, but I think probably the main standout for me is Brad Garrett as our antagonist. He's just really fun as an antagonist, and especially this type of character, and I just really like Brad Garrett. I think he's a lot of fun when he's in anything. And in my reviews, I don't always mention the score to the film because sometimes it's just kind of like average, whatever. I don't really need to mention the score there, but I want to mention the score here because I really, really enjoyed it. This is going to be a score that I'm going to be listening to on Spotify for like the weeks to come. The score is really just nice and sweepy, and it just really fits with the whole space adventure theme. There's plenty of horns and strings in the score, and it just really fits right in. I loved it. So overall, I did enjoy Elio, but I didn't love it like I was hoping that I would. I think it was good, but not great, if that makes sense. If I had to take a guess, it's probably not going to end up in the top 10 of my favorite films of the year, but it's definitely going to be one that I remember. I don't think it's going to be a new Pixar classic, but it's definitely a very solid film, and it's definitely worth a watch. The animation and character design is fantastic. There's so many tiny details there. The score is awesome, and there's a lot of strong characters and performances. Some of the screenplay stuff is what is a little bit on the disappointing side. The story, I don't necessarily think is super engaging. And there's some character development stuff and relationship stuff that I wish could have been developed a little bit more. And I wish the film as a whole was a bit more subtle. Like I said, kind of at the top of this review, there's not really a lot of bad here. There's just some things that are just not quite as solid as the rest of the film. So I'm going to give Elio a very solid 3.5 out of 5. But that's it. That's my review for Elio. Have you seen this film? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. I would absolutely love to have a conversation with you about it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for 300 subscribers. I'm so excited to see how this channel maybe can grow and what we might can do in the future. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.